Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is Force with some more Hearthstone. Today's video will actually just be discussion based. There was a recent post on the Battle.net Hearthstone forums talking about some upcoming changes to the game that I thought warranted a discussion video. At the very least, I just want to tell you about these changes and sort of give you some of my general impressions here. Okay, so two card changes are coming through. There's going to be two card changes that are actually, one of them is super significant, the other one just nerfs the card a little bit slightly. And then there's also going to be a change to how the laddering system is going to work with new seasons. And I'm not sure if they plan to stick to that 1 month season thing. I saw no mention of them changing that, so that might very well be the case. We'll have to wait and see. Anyways, let's talk about the card changes. The first card that is getting changed is good old Tinkmaster Overspark. This is a card that you're seeing in so many, especially the control, with so many high-end decks. Tinkmaster has just sort of taken over the scene, and for good reason. It's actually, you didn't see a lot of him in the first month or two that this game was available for play, but then people started to realize this is actually really, really good, basically for anything that's a high value 5-drop or more. Specifically cards like Sylvanas against Bloodhoof, against any of the super large creatures like Ragnaros or Tyrian Forgering, or even a Sunwalker, for example. His card was super good because it would transform a huge threat into something more manageable. At the very least, it was many times used to push past a taunt creature, because you would transform it to a 5/5 or a 1/1, and then you wouldn't have to deal with that taunt anymore. That is no longer the case. In fact, this card, based on what they're saying here, it seems to me to be almost unplayable in anything but a select few decks. So Tinkmaster Overspark is now going to be turned into a 3/3, so it'll be a 3-drop, and it'll be a 3/3 creature instead of a 2/2. And it reads, Battle Cry, transform another random minion into a 5/5 Devilsaur or a 1/1 Squirrel. So as opposed to the current wording, transform a minion into a Devilsaur or Squirrel at random, now it's not, that still thing is, the 5/5 or the 1/1 still happens at random, but now also the target is random. So this is no longer target removal. This is basically a card akin to the Mad Bomber. The Mad Bomber does random damage to random characters, and now Tinkmaster is going to turn a random minion into a 1/1 or 5/5. So now the what it was being used for is completely out the window, because now it cannot be used for target removal. But the other thing is, now you have to worry about your own creatures getting turned. So I can only see this now being played in very few select decks. One potential deck will be if you're running this aggro deck and you can play it very early, so that at the worst case scenario, it's going to turn one of your 1 or 2 drops into a 1/1, or best case scenario turns one of your 2 drops into a 5/5. But even in that case, playing this early, if your opponent has any minions on the board, that is scary, because then you're just turning a small minion, what's likely a small minion in the early game, potentially into a 5/5. The other place I could see this being used, and I think where it is more likely to be used, is in late game decks where you're basically playing no creatures until the very, very end of the game. So then all of a sudden it becomes a situation where you can use it, don't worry about one of your creatures potentially getting screwed over, and hopefully have a chance of turning one of your opponent's minions into a 1/1. But again, it's a random chance. I don't even see... with this change, they need to change this so that it's no longer legendary, because I don't see the change when it goes through making this a legendary card. In fact, it makes this card pretty subpar. Maybe a rare, but I don't know. I'm not impressed. I understand what they're trying to do is they're trying to make it so that these cards that show up in every deck aren't as strong, because they don't want cards to show up in every deck. But as soon as you nerf these cards that show up in every deck, there's going to be another set of cards that show up in every deck. This is just how it's going to work. I don't know. The second change was done to our friend Nat. Our friend Nat, who is a card that's in every deck. Why is Nat in every deck? Nat is in every deck because of the change to Novice Engineer. So they nerfed Novice Engineer because it was in every deck. Now Nat's in every deck, so they're nerfing Nat. they're gonna have to nerf Loot Hoarder next, because I'm pretty sure that's what's gonna take over. Now, Nat isn't quite as bad. Nat is actually still quite playable. They just basically set it back a phase, if you will. So Nat, in its current iteration, at the end of your turn, you have a 50% chance to draw a card. With its new upcoming iteration, at the start of your turn, you have a 50% chance to draw a card. So basically what this means is your opponent has an extra turn to respond to Nat before you can potentially take advantage of it. In the past, if you go second and you coin Nat on your first turn, your opponent is left with only 2 crystals to respond to Nat. Now, by the time you start drawing cards, your opponent will have 3 crystals and have more of an opportunity to deal with that 4 health and to remove Nat from play. But Nat is still quite playable. Again, it just sets it back a phase, but I still think it's a card that we're going to see plenty of. So that's that. So those are the 2 big card changes. Another change that went through is that they're also going to be changing the ranking system. With every new season, basically how far you've progressed in a prior season is going to determine your starter point. So an example was given that if you have attained Legend Innkeeper, which is rank 1, or Black Knight, which is rank 2, instead of starting the next season all the way down at rank 25, Angry Chicken, you'll actually start at rank 17, Questing Adventurer. So they're making it so that if you've pushed into the high ranks, first of all, you're not going to have to grind all the way down from 25 up. You'll be starting at a higher point. But it also means the primary reason is that they didn't want low-level players to have to compete with people who were Legend in the prior season, because everyone starts back at 25. And that's a change. Again, I see no problem with that. I'm actually quite happy with that, because that means if I push for a higher rank, I'm not going to have to start off quite so low at the beginning of the next season and have that huge grind ahead of me. So yeah, that's it. I just wanted to talk with you about these upcoming changes, give you sort of my opinions. I'm pretty disappointed with the change of Tinkmaster. Again, I understand their reasoning, because it was a card that showed up in every deck. It's the same reason they're changing Nat. But let's not forget, Nat is everywhere because Novice Engineer got nerfed. And now if people find that Nat's not worth it, we're just going to see another card that, for card draw's sake, that's in every single deck, and then they're going to nerf that one too. It's a going process. The game's in beta, I understand. It just kind of, I don't know, I guess humorous if nothing else. All right, guys, so that's it. Again, just going over the upcoming changes to a few cards and the ranking system with new seasons coming through to Hearthstone. The game is supposed to be launching very soon. It's in open beta now. You can play it if you want, but we're going to actually see an official launch sometime in the near future. That is word from Blizzard. So I guess look forward to that. I don't know if it's going to change much. Maybe at that point we'll get an announcement of a new set of cards. That would actually be very, very exciting. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you liked this video. Stay tuned for more Hearthstone content coming up. Keep watching and keep owning.